As I nurse my drink, Mayor begins to describe the main mafia figures in the city, along with the various rackets they keep, in great detail. Combined with everything else I've seen tonight, I think it confirms my suspicions. He's near the top of the underworld food chain in Cleveland. He's not even trying to hide it. In fact, I think he's just playing a game with me, seeing how far we can take this before one of us has to state the obvious. Knowing that, you would think I'd be incredibly uncomfortable right now, but for whatever reason, being around Mayor puts me completely at ease. Maybe it's his disarming, casual mannerisms, or the soft and smooth way he speaks. There's nothing aggressive or thug-like about him. He's perfectly composed. Occasionally, he shifts on the sofa beside me, brushing my leg with his own in a way that can't possibly be by accident. I can't tell what's going on behind his twinkling green eyes, but there's something playfully devious about the glances he keeps giving me. And I think that would make our trade just about even, no? He finishes his thorough description with an impish wink, taking a sip from his coffee. You sure are familiar with all the gang activity around here, aren't you? If I didn't know better, I'd almost think you controlled some of it yourself. Me? Why, I'm not sure what would lead you to such an outrageous conclusion. Instead of looking offended, though, Mayor presses a little closer, his smirk suddenly growing mischievous. After all, it's rather rash to assume things about people you don't know particularly well. Don't you agree, Richer? How do you... He smugly lifts the cake bag, rustling it before my face. Your name is on the label. A mistake I wouldn't expect from you, if you'll pardon my rudeness. Were you distracted at the time you purchased it? I'm not about to mention how I was daydreaming about him when I bought the cake. I think I'd rather just let my professional pride take the fall. Of course, I know you're a detective too, and I can guess why you're here. But please, don't take it as a blow to your acting skills. I'm just well acquainted with a number of professional liars, you see. If you already know so much about me, why are you pouring me drinks rather than having me shot and dumped in the alley? Mayor clicks his tongue, lightly wagging a finger at me. Violence is not how I prefer to do business, Richard. It's only ever a temporary solution. Violence begets violence, which is why you have warring Italian crime families rather than one consolidated, powerful body. No, in most circumstances, I would much rather make friends than enemies. Friends like you, which is why you're not being dumped in an alley. Although I would never harm a Shayna Punim like you, no matter what my moral code was. Shayna Punim. The Yiddish phrase literally means pretty face. Okay. He shifts on the sofa again, this time letting his legs stay resting against my own. I swallow, relieved at Mayer's explanation, but acutely aware of his face being a mere few inches to my right. You certainly aren't like any other guy I've met, law-abiding or otherwise. Why don't you tell me more about what it's like, being in this risky business? I clumsily attempt to slide the conversation in another direction, daring to glance over at Mayor. No, please. I know a one-sided agreement when I see one. With the gloating air of someone who's just caught the opponent cheating, Mayor shakes his head. I'll answer a few questions of yours, but only on the condition I can ask a few of my own. I swear on my honor to answer with the truth, and you'll do the same. But we can each avoid one question in exchange for a favor. Does that strike you as fair? His tone casually rises at the end, not so subtly daring me to accept. I think I'd be an idiot to expect a businessman like yourself to play fair, but alright, I'll bite. That's what I like to hear. Mayor gives me a rakish, teasing grin, all too pleased with my reply. A gesture of goodwill, I'll even let you start. Really? How do you make any money with that kind of generosity? Oh, you'd be surprised. Mayer chuckles to himself. I pause and ponder on just what to ask. What do I most want to know about? Ask about his history. Tell me about your background, your history. What was it like for you growing up? My question seems to catch Mayer off guard. But his surprise quickly shifts into a gentle, pleased expression, and he nods in acknowledgement. I was raised in a cozy little Jewish community in Missouri, where I lived until a few years ago. I'm sure you'll find this hard to believe, but I always kept to myself as a boy. I rarely spoke to anyone. I suppose you could say I was afraid of rejection. Our rabbi was my closest friend. We ate corned beef sandwiches and talked about baseball on the weekends. Looking back now, I think he was just as lonely as I. He chuckled softly, gaze flicking down to the coffee table, and lingering on his cup. I can't imagine Mayer ever being withdrawn. I guess he didn't develop his charisma until later. Several days after my bar mitzvah, a few boys who I had never seen before approached me on the street. Mayer, they said, you're a tall, strong guy. What the hell are you playing with the rabbi instead of making money? Or why the hell are you playing with the rabbi instead of making money? I realized I didn't have that much of an answer. We formed a merry little crew. It was enjoyable to have that kind of attention from my peers, and my desire to fit in was why I began doing jobs with them. Eventually, my name garnered a certain reputation. The association grew, people started looking up to me, and somehow I ended up on top of it all. Mayer's eyes returned to me. I can't really read the true emotion behind them. Nostalgia, regret, or satisfaction. The rabbi, you know whatever happened to him? We don't speak anymore. He gives me one of those brief, thin-lipped smiles, and the kind you showed to be polite. Again, it's hard to see through what it means, but I can detect a little longing in his voice. You know, I'd always separated mobsters from real people in my head, like you were all just monsters who'd lost your humanity. But listening to you talk, I guess it makes me realize how we're not so different after all. I twirl my glass between my fingers, unsure if that knowledge makes me more happy or grim. Mayer studied me in silence for a little while. It's not an awkward silence, though, just a thoughtful one. Well, your turn. For a question, you have one? Oh, I have many. When the silence finally breaks, Mayer gives me a wry grin, his eyes momentarily flicking down to my mouth. Yeah, I'm listening. Alright, what's your greatest fear? My greatest fear? He nods, watching me expectantly. No immediate answer pops in my head, so I mull over the question for a moment. My greatest fear? Something that would keep me from sleeping at night. Hurting innocent people. Oh? I nod, forcing a brief, awkward smile as I take another sip from my drink. Mayer doesn't add anything further, though. Is he waiting for me to elaborate? I just think it's my duty, well, the duty of everyone in law enforcement, to make sure Americans are safe and happy. That's why we exist. It's not just a job you do for money. It's a job that lets you go home and feel better about the work, even if it's just a little bit. Mayer tilts his head a little to one side, eyes glimmering at me. Then his hand slips onto my shoulder, resting there gently for a few seconds before squeezing it. Very admirable, Richer. Although I have to wonder just where Volstead fits into that. He trails off curiously. Is he trying to lead me somewhere with that vague comment? Well, it's your turn, isn't it? Why don't you ask me something lighthearted? I don't mind if you get more personal. He leans in a little more, hand still lingering on my shoulder. I can smell his light cologne and the subtle, earthy scent of coffee. I've been trying desperately to keep my nerves under control, but it's getting harder and harder the more Mayer teases into my personal space. Let's go for it! Do you, have a lover? A wife? You must, right? Being the cat's meow and all. No. Mayer responds casually, offering a little shrug when I shoot a glance over at him. Is it my imagination, or does he look incredibly smug right now? Why are you wearing that expression? Are you so very surprised, or maybe you're relieved? No, just surprised is all. I really didn't think you'd still be a bachelor. And why is that? Because I'm the cat's meow? Can we just get on with the next question? Pausing, Mayer makes a show of tapping a finger against his bottom lip, turning his eyes towards the ceiling. It's such an obvious display that I know for a fact he's already got his question pick out and he's just toying with me. I drained the last of my glass in an attempt to act casual, turning my head away slightly. Ah, I've got one. What memory do you have of your first kiss? Please, describe it in great detail. I nearly choke on my drink. So this is what he was planning all along. I'm listening, very attentively. Hold on, Damn it, I know this is what he wanted me to say, but it'll be a cold day in hell before I tell this guy I've never properly kissed anyone before. Can I just trade the favor? Oh? Don't frame surprise, you bastard! In that case, I suppose you'll take up on that favor right now. Suppose I'll take you up on that favor right now. I reflexively squeeze my eyes shut, sucking in a breath. It feels like my chest is going to explode. Richard? What are you doing? I reopen one eye to see Mayer staring at me quizzically. I thought he... No, of course he wouldn't. He's too much of a gentleman. Just a little dizzy from the drink. So what'd you want from me for the favor? Well, you'd probably think me a fool for saying this, but... Reaching for the bag at his right, Mayer lifts it up and sighs happily, slipping his hand inside to unwrap the cake. I'd like you to share it with me. Share the cake? He nods, pulling back the paper wrapping to reveal the delicious-looking spongy white dessert. I'd feel guilty enjoying it by myself, especially considering you bought it for me. So I'd prefer we savor it together. Does that sound agreeable? Ha! I haven't had a thing since lunch, so you're asking the right guy. Should we just cut it in half, or what? No. You're going to feed it to me. I blink at Mayer, unsure if I heard him correctly. He gazes back at me calmly. I definitely didn't mishear that, did I? If you want, then should I go get a fork, or... That won't be necessary. Come, take a bite. Mayer offers the cake to me, along with a daring raise of his brow. I feel like I just walked right into a trap. But I knew that from the beginning, didn't I? And I came here all the same, because I wanted it to happen. I take a small bite of the cake, letting the fluffy sweetness rest on my tongue. Then, Mayer gently curls a finger under my chin, gradually closing the distance between us. His chest presses against mine, pinning me back to the back of the sofa. There's no need for embarrassment, Richard. His breath slow... He... Drink. He breathes those words against my cheek, pulling my jaw down ever so slightly to part my lips. Slowly, delicately, he covers my mouth with his own. The sweet flavor mingles between our tongues, but my head feels so foggy that I can barely think about how it tastes. Mayer teases me with maddeningly light, soft kisses, pulling back a little bit each time I start to press forward. He's really trying to provoke me, isn't he? Well, it's working. I bite down hard on his lower lip, exhaling a hot, impatient breath. Momentarily, his chest presses harder against mine. His kisses suddenly grow more aggressive, hard and deep, so intense that I have to gasp for air whenever I can. I pull his coat off his shoulders, grasping needily at his shirt, letting my hands wander all over his powerful body. Just as his tongue starts to slip into my mouth, he pulls back again, this time breaking into a devilish grin. If I'd known that you'd be so eager, I would have done this a lot sooner. Are we gonna spend the whole night talking, or share more of that cake? I can't disappoint my favorite detective now, can I? It would be horrible if you clapped me in shackles and brought me in for interrogation, after all. You sound pretty excited about that idea, actually. Kinky. And can you blame me? Mayer swipes a finger through the cake's icing, then presses it past my lips. I suckle on it without hesitation, lapping the sweetness off his fingertip, a faint moan leaking from my throat before I can contain it. Richer. Mayer suddenly leans in for another kiss, trailing his finger along my bottom lip. This time, he's the impatient one, his tongue pressing insistently against my lips until I part them. It greedily swirls inside my mouth, tangling with my own tongue as Mayer presses me roughly against the couch. It's like he can't get enough of me, and I can't get enough of him. I grab his hips and keep pulling forward, wanting more and more. Just need a little water. No reason. As we trade eager, wet kisses, my mind hazily wanders towards a certain question. What am I really doing here? Am I trying to live out some detective seduced by a mobster fantasy? Or is it like Mayer said? Are we just two men outside of our opposite professions savoring each other's company? If Leslie could see me right now, I don't know what he'd think, or if he'd even find it excusable. But I'm so easily turned away from my duties by a gangster. Maybe I was never cut out for this line of work to begin with. No more noises from me, I'm sorry. One of Mayer's hands drifts down my chest, slipping around my waist to squeeze my hip. I normally wouldn't do this on a first date, especially since I'd like to give you a reason to come back. He heatedly murmurs a string of words between breathless kisses, not giving me a moment to reply. But it doesn't feel like you'll need too much convincing. His fingertips tease along my inner thigh, sending shivers through me from head to toe. Alright guys, keep it PG, guys. Just a little bit higher. A little bit higher. Timing! A frantic knock at the door makes both of us jerk apart. Mayer smooths back his hair and clothes, sitting back and clearing his throat. Come in! Richard's just like, let me have the cake and just hide this. The door instantly flies open, and one of Mayer's men bolts inside. Mr. Eastman! Mr. Easton, there's a bunch of cops sniffing around right outside the joint. I think something's about to go down if we don't stop them. Wait! Those are my guys. Safety precaution. I jump up from the sofa, inwardly kicking myself. Damn it, I should have told them to go home earlier. I lost track of time and... Shit, there's no excuse. It's alright, Richard. Mayor's gentle voice calls to me reassuringly. Go put your men at ease. Maybe, by some grand stroke of fate, you'll end up here again tomorrow, and we can resume our talk. He puts one of his wickedly innocent smiles, winking at me. Thanks. I hope I can see you soon. You doubtlessly will. With a hasty nod, I turn and follow the other man to the door, smoothing back my own ruffled hair. Luckily for me, those officers probably aren't being paid enough to ask many questions. Oh, and Richard. Excuse me. He calls out to me just as I'm about to cross the threshold, and I glance back at him. Don't forget what your real duty is, Good night. Mayor's man shuffles me along to the exit before I have a chance to reply. My real duty? What the hell does he mean by that? Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but those words stick in the back of my mind, even as I leave the speakeasy to reassure the officers I'm alright and defuse the situation. Hopefully I'll get a chance to see Mayor tomorrow, and I'll ask him then. My heart's still pounding from the end of our talk. That's a word. When I finally get back home and roll into bed, there's no way I can fall asleep, so I spend the night restlessly tossing and turning. I'd rather be hungover than this. Jesus. Infatuation doesn't fade away half as easy. Morning, boss. I stumble into the office, feeling like a corpse dragged out of its grave. Coffee. Ugh. Richard? This is the second day in a row you've come in looking like a bedraggled cat. Do we need to have an intervention? I'm fine, just couldn't sleep. Christ, something really is messed up with when... Let me start over again. Christ, something really is messed up when Leslie shows up at work before me. He lets out a long, playful sigh, shaking his head before taking a sip of his coffee. Well, don't keep me in suspense. Your escapades last night, of course? What happened? What did you find out? Oh, yeah, right. With my own coffee mug in hand, I sink down into my chair, clearing my throat. Going to have to leave out some of the details here, I think. and then we were, like, almost grinding and... I'm gonna be good. I'm fine. I'm sorry. My new friend, Mr. Mayor Eastman, well, he gave me some information about the powerful mob players in the city. Seemed like he's really in the loop. The already pale Leslie seems to suddenly grow a shade paler. He slowly sets down his coffee and leans forward over his desk, brow furrowing as he stares at me. Did you say Eastman? Sure did, boss. Why? Why? Yes? Are you losing your hearing already, boss? You're not that old. Because Eastman is the man running all of Cleveland, that's why! Leslie raises his voice in excitement and frustration, slamming his fist down on his desk. All of Cleveland? Yes! All of Cleveland. I found out about him last night at the party I went to. He's well liked and hugely powerful, and most of Cleveland's Italian mafia is terrified of him. I don't know how on earth he managed to get into his good books, but Eastman is the key to taking down the city's liquor business. In fact, I think that speakeasy itself might be his main base. After we get a bit more information, we should set up a raid. I figured Mayor was powerful, but I had no idea he was running all of Cleveland. Leslie's right, obviously. Our department is supposed to be working with the FBI to enforce prohibition here, which means shutting down criminal outfits. This should be a huge step forward. If that's the case, then why do I feel so reluctant? It's not like Mayor trusts me. In fact, I'm sure he doesn't, but I can't imagine putting him behind bars. Last night was probably just a game, his attempt to manipulate me onto his side. And yet it didn't feel like that at all. Oi, Richard. Are you spacing out? Do you need some more coffee? I snapped back to the moment, greeted by a curious Leslie staring at me quizzically. No, I was just thinking, boss. We're going about this the wrong way. The wrong way? You have a different idea? When I nod, Leslie tilts his head to the side, motioning for me to continue. If there's anything I can give him credit for, it's that he's usually willing to listen to what I say, even if I'm the junior partner. Let me keep talking to Eastman. I'll get more details out of him, I promise. We shouldn't throw him in jail, not yet. Leslie stares at me in stunned silence. Does it really sound that strange? Did you hit your head on the way home last night, Richard? This is a mob boss we're talking about. He's dangerous. Not in line to be the next pope. I don't know what he said to you, but you shouldn't believe him. Just because he hasn't killed you yet doesn't mean he won't once you've outlived your usefulness. Have you thought about that? His frustrated, skeptical words echo my own thoughts, as much as I hate to admit it. Maybe it's stupid to try and deny them, but before I can control myself, I blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. He's not a murder machine, Leslie. He's not a one-sided villain who was born bad. Sure, most mobsters out there are ruthless bastards, but so are most of us. Sorry. Let me try again. Sure, most mobsters out there are ruthless bastards, but so are a lot of normal people. Mafia guys aren't some special breed, evil to their rotten cores. Mayor, he's a businessman. He's using the law for profit. I know that, and I'm not saying I think it's right. But after talking to him, spending time with him, seeing how he's just a guy like any other, I'll be damned if I don't have more sympathy for him than whatever rich old highbinder is handing down orders in the FBI. Highbinder refers to a corrupt politician or swindler. It originates from the name of a Chinese-American criminal organization in New York in the late 1800s. Leslie stays quiet, biting his bottom lip, a nervous habit of his, and avoiding my gaze for a time. I never raise my voice at him, nor anyone else for that matter. I instantly feel a little sheepish about it, but I didn't know how else to express my change of heart. Finally, Leslie rubs at his eyes with one hand and gently sighs, a small smile twitching at the corners of his lips. He stands up from his desk, walks over, giving me one of those affectionate "what am I going to do with you" looks. I guess I'm not all that surprised. You've always been compassionate and honest, probably why you're a terrible liar. He pauses, reaching out to gently ruffle my hair. There's still a worried crease in his brow, but I think he's trying his hardest to believe in me. If you really, really think this man isn't out to just screw us over, and he'll be of use to the investigation somehow, then I suppose I'm willing to go along with it. For a little while, at least. Boss. A little while, I said. Hey, what? I jump out of my chair and pull Leslie into a hug, tightly squeezing his wiry frame. Hugging. And my voice is dying. He stiffens for a moment, but eventually wraps his arms around me too, softly patting my back. I sure hope you know what you're doing, Richard. If something ever happened to you, well, let's just say I have a hard enough time living with myself already. Why, because you're so high maintenance? Exactly. You know how many times a day I have to feed myself? It's very difficult, and having guilt on my shoulders won't help things any. I'll be fine, boss. Don't worry about me. As we pull apart, I gaze down into Leslie's face for a moment. He doesn't look fully convinced, and it's perfectly reasonable. We're paid to be suspicious. I'll bring him around to the idea eventually, if everything works out. He's open-minded to just about anything given enough time. Except vegetables, maybe. Vegetables are of the devil! After we discuss things a little more, Leslie and I settle about our usual routine of paperwork, calls, and more paperwork. I don't know why I struggled so hard. It's not like our work normally flies by, but today the hours seem especially long. At last, evening rolls around. When I head outside, my feet start to take me down a familiar road before I even realize it. Welcome, sir. Please enjoy your night. Loud music rushes over me in a wave. The familiar sea of dancers, lights, and sparkling glasses. The place is starting to grow on me. To my surprise, I spot Mayer already standing by the bar, cup of coffee in hand as he chats with the bartender. Should I go up to him? I don't want to come off too strong. Maybe I should casually strike up a conversation with someone else and wait for... Just as I mull over my plan, Mayer's gaze meets mine. He instantly breaks into a warm smile, beckoning me over. Phew. I wander towards the bar and step up beside him, clearing my throat to buy time as I figure out what to say. Well, it seems like my detective wandered back to me. Did you flock for... Sorry, guys. I've been recording for, 2 hours straight. I'm trying to get to the end of this. Did your flock of officers decide to come along today, too? No, I left them at home with a sitter. Good. I can tell you how disappointed I was when they decided to interrupt. His suggestive airy murmur sends a tingle down the back of my neck. At least I wasn't the only one who was disappointed. Keep it professional, boys! Yeah? Well, I was really looking forward to the rest of that cake. I'm afraid I enjoyed the rest of it by myself, but I was thinking of you all the while. Does that make you feel any better? Not one bit. Mayer lets out one of his deep chuckles, low and comforting. It always seems like his sly, evasive mask melts away for a split second whenever he laughs, betraying something vulnerable. Listen, Richard, if you'd prefer, we can always linger out here and talk. As much as I want to savor all of you in private, I'm more than happy to just enjoy your company, discussing whatever flights of fancy we have. I probably shouldn't have said that. I imagine my seductive air of mystique is all but ruined for you now. No, I hadn't even... Never mind. His leg lightly brushes mine underneath the bar and out of sight. He's so bold, this guy. I can see how he got into his line of work, no doubt about that. Actually, I wanted to ask you some more serious questions. Privacy might work better. Just, as a precaution. Oh, of course. I have no doubt that your reasons are entirely... Ah! It's the cops! At that moment, the speakeasy door flies open and a small group of officers rush in. Screams echo through the parlor after the music cuts off, but the cacophony quickly goes silent. Eastman's men can't even reach for their guns. The officers are already aiming their own. At the head of the group stands Leslie. Richard! The second our eyes meet, he rushes over to me, releasing a huge sigh of relief. Richard, thank God you're not hurt. I thought for sure that... We had an agreement, Leslie, didn't we? How can you just storm in here after me? Don't you trust me? When I managed to choked accusation, Leslie just shakes his head, eyes narrowed. It's not about trust, Richard. It's not even about the job. To hell with information gathering. The thing I care most about is keeping you safe. You're too honest, too trusting, and I just can't let you run around with people like this, even for the sake of the investigation. He gestures at Mayor angrily, apparently having guessed his identity already. Leslie was really that worried about me? I knew he was still concerned, I just didn't think he'd go this far. Mayor, who's been entirely silent this whole time, watches us with a carefully measured expression. How can he be so calm? He had no idea this was going to happen, did he? Sorry. Gentlemen, I believe there's been some severe miscommunication. Please, Mr. Leslie, tell your men to lower their weapons. Then we can discuss things calmly, without the threat of accidental bloodshed. Agreed? Leslie hesitates. There's a very strange degree of trust going on here, but I get the sense that neither of them wants it to end in violence. I know Leslie hates hurting anyone, even criminals, and Mayor doesn't seem the type to enjoy it either. Understood. He signals to the officers, who slowly, reluctantly lower their guns. The tension in the room eases a little bit, though it's still far from calm. Let me say first, Mr. Leslie, that I entirely understand your concern for your partner's safety. But you see, after our friend Richard here showed up the other night, I was struck with an idea. I knew he was a detective before he so much as walked in the door, your informant's working with me, so I decided to have a chat with him. Sorry. I'm trying so hard to get to the end of this, because I'm so close, but my voice is also dying. So there's probably going to be a lot of breaks in the recording from here on out. I'm sorry. You mean, back there, that was... Don't get me wrong, Richard. I was enjoying every second of it. But I've been looking for a way to work out an arrangement with the law in Cleveland for some time. You're a hard-headed sort here, let me tell you. He exhales a breath between his teeth, gently shaking his head. Richard, however, I could tell that he was made of something different. Not so hell-bent on enforcing the Volstagg Act, yet not just the type to be bought either. I was intrigued. So I thought I'd try to work out a deal, as is my way. Last night was supposed to be the beginning of that deal, but... Well, I was enjoying the company so much that I thought to myself, what harm can it be to wait a little longer? When Mayer's glimmering eyes settle on me, I feel my heart skip a beat. Maybe several. He invited me back to make a deal, but it spiraled into something more because he enjoyed my company? So you really believed we wouldn't try to arrest you? It was a calculated risk, of course. Mayer casually waves one hand. The way he keeps this kind of sang-froid even while surrounded by the law, no wonder he's a leader. Sang-froid, literally, cold blood in French, refers to someone who acts cool and composed even in tough circumstances. Probably not pronounced correctly, that's fine. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I like to make big gambles, and usually they pay off. But I've done my research on your backgrounds, your past jobs. I knew you wouldn't simply raid my revenue without showing a few of your cards first. So you could say the chips landed where I thought they might. Leslie rubs his cheek with a hand, blinking rapidly as if to try to understand everything we just heard. I can't blame him. I knew Mayer was sharp, but I had no idea he planned everything out ahead of time. You know, Even though we're the ones with our guns out, I can't shake this feeling that we played right into your hand. You really do live up to your reputation, don't you? I was expecting Leslie to be furious, but instead he sounds more impressed than anything. Is it possible that he actually took some of my words to heart back in the office? You mentioned a deal earlier. Care to explain what kind of deal you're talking about? Ah, I was hoping you'd ask that. A particularly satisfied smirk curls on Mayer's lips, the type a man wears when he's just won at cards. Why don't we discuss matters privately, on neutral ground? I'll even let you pick the spot. All of us disarmed, with a few of our men waiting outside. A moment, if you don't mind. Leslie grabs my sleeve and pulls me aside, leaning up to whisper in my ear. You really trust him enough for this? Normally I say it's suicide, but this mayor, he's not like any other man I've ever met. It's like we're talking to the chief of a big corporation, not a mafia leader. He scratches his head, clearly baffled. It's not like I can blame him. I felt the same way when I first met Mayor the other night. I know he doesn't mean us any harm, boss. He's still a gangster, I can't deny that, but... I pause, swallowing. Better word things delicately, or else Leslie might catch on. I think he genuinely wants to work out a deal with us. All of us would be way too much trouble otherwise. My thoughts exactly. You think we should hear him out then? Without hesitation, I nod. Maybe it's an incredibly stupid decision, but I can't bring myself to believe all of last night was just a means to an end. If you don't mind me saying, Mr. Leslie, I gather you're the type to take precautions. Mayor pipes up airily, and we both glance over towards him. Should the two of you not show up in perfect health tomorrow, I'm certain I'll have a big hassle in my hands, and that's not what I want, I assure you. You really did your research, didn't you? It's a favorite hobby of mine. So that means you know what size underwear Richard wears? Boss! I'm afraid you'll have to barter for that information. Oh, you drive a hard bargain, do you? I like that. Great, just great. After a little more discussion, the three of us settle on a hotel room for our meeting spot. The unfortunate patrons who had to witness all that, well, they were sent home and promised free drinks when they come back. In this day and age, it's probably enough to risk being shot. Once that mess is sorted out, the three of us head to the hotel with our respective men. I can't even begin to imagine how tonight will end, but I have to hope for the best. I hope this isn't the part where we get shot by a sniper through the window. The restaurant across the street wouldn't let me inside, unfortunately. Ah, what a relief. The three of us stroll into the hotel room, still followed by the tense air from earlier. Marin and Leslie have been constantly bantering on the way here, but I can't tell if it's genuine snideness or the playful kind. Well, no point wasting any time, eh? Let's hear your proposal, Eastman. We're listening. Of course. I'm sure both of you are exceptionally busy men. We shift into a fairly close circle, close enough that we don't risk our voices carrying too far. Leslie stands nearer to my side than Mayor, almost protective in his stance. I don't know what he thinks he can do. If worst came to worst, I guess I could pick him up and use him as a battering ram. I assume you're already aware of my influence in our city and the control I have over a large amount of business. But I'm not without competition. There are a number of smaller, persistent groups that, while less organized, are still significant. As a result of my extensive network, I'm familiar with the movements of these various outfits and their leaders across Cleveland. In English, that means you know what the other gangs are up to, right? Precisely, Richard. He winks at me, almost imperceptibly, like I've finally been let in on some inside joke. I propose that I offer a steady stream of that information to you, more than enough to fill reports for the FBI, surely, at least for the time being. You'll discover a new warehouse to raid every other week, one that coincidentally belongs to a different organization than my own. Funny thing how coincidences like that happen. Leslie quips dryly, glancing between Mayor and me. His gaze stays locked with mine for several seconds, one eyebrow raised in a "what do you make of this so far" kind of way. So, what would you be wanting in exchange? A level of discretion on your part that would allow me to carry on with business. Mayor murmurs his terms rather naturally, blowing on his nails and polishing them nonchalantly on his collar. I'll see to it that my men keep their noses clean. After all, I'm interested in providing alcohol to customers, not filling the streets with bodies of my men. Very poetic. There's certainly more where that came from. He doesn't even make eye contact, innocently gazing in another direction, but his tone is teasing enough to get the message across. Leslie narrows his eyes at Mayor. Is he trying to read him, or has he already made up his mind? Believe me, I don't doubt that part of this conflicts with your sense of justice as detectives. After speaking with Richard, I wouldn't expect anything less. But you're both logical, practical men. Try to view the situation through a more objective lens. There's a short pause, but an important one. My mind flashes back to my conversation with Leslie, our doubts and guilt over what we're doing. If you took me to jail right now, and by some miracle managed to convict me, someone else will only step up to take my place. This war on liquor will never really end. It should never have existed to begin with. All it succeeded in doing was creating a different sort of industry, a more dangerous one. With all that in mind, his dark green eyes flicked from me to Leslie and back to me. Why not compromise and make your employers happy, in exchange for making the American people happy? Once he finishes speaking, a longer silence follows over the room. Leslie rubs at his shoulder with one hand, staring at the floor with a deep, brooding expression, and I fall into my own complicated thoughts. I've always wanted to control crime, uphold the law, fall asleep with a clean conscience every night. But when it comes to prohibition, that same question keeps resurfacing in my mind. Is enforcing the law really the right thing to do? Should we follow federal orders like mindless slaves, or should we make our own judgments in cases like this? I steal a glance up at Mayor. He returns my gaze with a gentle, calm smile, eyes glimmering curiously. Richer. Leslie turns to face me, his features carefully composed in an unusually neutral mask. Any thoughts? Deciding to let my apparently crippling honesty speak for me, I take a deep breath. I don't think prohibition is meant to last. I take pride in my job, but I get nothing out of enforcing Volstead's middle finger to America. Snatching away hooch just to suit the Fed's fancy, that doesn't sit right with me. And as for Mayor, I think he's right, boss. With him or without him, the liquor business here will keep going, and I'd rather someone like Mayor run it than a crew of out for blood as much as profit. Leslie chews his lip. He's wavering on the brink of deciding something, but I can't tell which way he's leaning. Whatever decision you make, boss, I'll stand behind it. You can count on that. I know, Richard. That's why you're my partner. After a lengthy pause, Leslie finally breaks into a faint smile, turning his gaze from me to Mayor. Listen, I can promise a deal will hold forever, Mayor. I can't promise a deal will hold forever, Mayor. There's always a risk that someone will find out, or we'll get moved into a different case. I'm well aware. So few good things last forever. But that's more of a reason to enjoy them while they last, isn't it? Heh, I'll drink to that, alright. He suddenly takes a deep, sharp breath, eyes flashing. Damn, it sure feels good to spit in Volstead's eye, that son of a bitch. And grabs Mayor's hand firmly, shaking it with pure determination. In fact, he seems so convicted that I have to wonder how hard the decision really was for him. He wasn't just pausing for dramatic effect back then, was he? It is Leslie we're talking about, so maybe. You know, my sister got married last week, and the reception was completely dry, not a drop of booze in sight. Have you ever had to sit through 15 wedding speeches completely sober? I've never prayed so hard for the rapture in my life. And as his hand pumped up and down by an enthusiastic Leslie, Mayor breaks into a delightful laughter. Maybe this the first time I've ever heard him be so loud. Whether it's from amusement or relief, though, I can't really tell. Well, this is a cause for celebration, gentlemen. Wouldn't you agree? Mayor steps over to the door, lightly knocking 4 times. A few seconds later, it opens slightly, and someone discreetly hands him a bottle and several wine glasses. Is that... You had them bring it here? Wasn't that a bit presumptuous? I only make bets I'm confident in. I have a feeling we're going to get along just fine. They exchange playful glances, and then their eyes slide over to me. Why do I suddenly feel like a rabbit spotted by a pair of lions? Like I said, pair of lions. You get it. Hey, what are you... Before I know it, the other two have taken my arms, pulling me over to the foot of the bed. Whoa. Guys? I think, like they're operating on some new unspoken pact, they sandwich me between them before I can even finish my protest. Shall we toast to the success of our new partnership? Don't mind if I do. You're a true gentleman after all, Mr. Mayor. Leslie holds out his glass, and Mayor casually reaches over me to pour. And, of course, we shouldn't forget the wonderful little detective who brought us together, should we? Well, it's really nothing. I humbly nominate him as our ambassador, the key component to making sure our arrangement runs smoothly. That's actually not a bad idea. He can't tell a lie to save his life, so it's better for him than undercover work, that's for sure. What the... I didn't agree to this, did I? Hello? Agree? Richard, please. You're merely continuing the role you already have here. You heard the man, Richard. Ambassador is a great-sounding title, too. I'm jealous. Very funny. You fellas are a real riot. As I grumble to myself, watching the I can't speak anymore. Watching the deep ruby liquid flow into Leslie's glass. My mind begins to picture how many other deals like this will take place while prohibition goes on. It's already changed our country forever, changed us as Americans forever, though I doubt we'll understand the full scale of it for many, many years. But when I think about all the detectives and officers who will one day reach the same conclusion as us, I have to wonder, just how much longer will this dry America last? I think it's perfectly fair to keep him for 4 days a week with me. 4 days? You greedy bastard trying to monopolize him, eh? I tune back into a good-natured argument, one that seems to be about... what if we shared him for 1 day? Surely a reasonable man like yourself would agree to that, Leslie. Sharing him for a day, eh? You know, I think that could be arranged. What the hell kind of conversation are you... Never mind. I think Richard's in danger. Sorry, I just got lost in the music for a moment. Closing thoughts. I love this game. This it's everything that I love in a visual novel. The characters are great. The relationships between the characters are great. The random bits of, like, fun facts. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. There's so much good stuff here! You get quotes, you get trivia, you get vocabulary, you get Yiddish! Which is like... compose myself. I like this game. I like this game a lot. But, yeah, I have no idea how many episodes I just recorded. It's probably at least 2, maybe more. We'll see. Editing's gonna be hell. I'm so ready for that. I had such a good time with this. I am about to lose my voice entirely. I think this is the end of my recording for the day, possibly for the week. I'm having a great time. Love you guys so much. I hope to see you again on whatever day it is that the next upload is going up on. Thank you!